So we last left off in Hilchos Megilah וחנוכה, Perik Aleph, halacha Daled. So we established the Mitzvah of Megillah and the who. So that dealt with who is obligated, what gets pushed aside for it, who and how people can be yotze. How much, what the basic form of the mitzvah is to read all of it day by night and day, and then the brachos that are said on it. Now we're up to zmane kriya. Ezehu zman kriyasa. What is the time of its reading? Zmanim harb. So this is meaning the date of its reading. Okay, this is not, because we already said that the entire is not time of day, because time of day he said it's kosher all day, and time for the night one is kosher all night. So zmanim harbe tiknula. They established many times for it. Shnemar bizmanehem, in their times. Okay. That's in the Megillah. Ve'ilu heim zmane kriyasa. These are the times of the reading. Kol Medina shahaisa mukefes choma b'mei Yehoshua bin Nun. Any, how do you like translating Medina? Yeah. Yeah, I think I like state also. Yeah, there's no real equivalent, right? Because this is kind of like an elastic term that can mean state, city, country. So any Medina, Shahaisa Mukefes Choma B'mei Yehoshua ben Nun, that was surrounded by a wall from the time of Yehoshua ben Nun, Bein ba'aretz, bein b'chutz la'aretz, whether in Israel or outside of Israel. Afal pi she'ein la achshav choma, even though it doesn't have a wall now, korin b'chamisha asar la'adar. They read on the 15th of Adar. U'medina zo hiya nikrois krach. This type of city is called a krach city. V'chol medina shelo ha'isa mukefes choma b'mos Yehoshua, alpha pishi mukefes ata, korin ba'arba asar, any city that was not walled at the time of Yehoshua, even though it is walled now, they read on the 14th. Medina zo hiya nikrois ir. That's called a city. Right, we'll have to just say krach. Krach, I don't know, like, how do you translate krach? That's not city. Big city? I mean,
city that was born from Yehoshua.
Yeah, I mean, literally, krach I assume comes from like wrapped.
Yeah.
Right, like it was like enwrapped with a wall.
Yeah.
But I just don't know, walled city, I guess. Yeah, I never noticed that he presents the reading on the 15th first.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think we assume that the 14th is the normal one, and those weird people who read on the 15th, but
like a special exception. But
yeah.
No, it's also weird that it's from Ethiopia.
Oh, he addresses that. Good thinking, yeah. Okay, Shushan Habira, Shushan the capital, or Susa, as they call it now. Even though it was not walled at the time of Yehoshua, Korin b'chamisha asar. They read on the 15th. Sheba haya hanes, because the nes was in it. Shnemar, as it is stated, v'noach b'chamisha asar bo. They rest on the 15th on it, right? Just to make sure we get the basic chronology here, right? Is that they fought on the so in other cities they fought on the 13th and then they rested on the 14th, and then in Shushan then they asked for an additional day, so they fought on the 13th and 14th and then rested on the 15th. So what he's referring to is the nace. See, there's another thing I never noticed. The nace, that was the nace. Doesn't the Gemara go through all these possibilities about when the nace was? About like, was the nace, the goral falling out, or was the nace, Achashverosh's sleep being disturbed, or was this? I thought there are many possibilities as to when the nace was.
Wait, I thought he was just saying that's where the nace was.
Oh, the Bahaya nace.
Is that where maybe the Kriya should start? Is that what?
But that's because that's where the.
Okay, yeah. You're saying the Ba is not on the 15th. You're saying that was in the city. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Yeah, you're right. Okay, I read it wrong. Yeah, that makes sense. The nace was in Shushan. Correct. Yeah. Okay, good. They rest on 15th there. So in other words, there are two steps though. The nace was in Shushan, and in Shushan they rested on the 15th. Mm-hmm. So the Megillah is not, the Zman of Krias Megillah was not established based on when the nace happened. It was established based on when they got reprieved. But then the location of the nace is a separate thing that dictates that Shushan go according to the walled cities, even though it wasn't walled.
Yeah, it's weird because It kind of gives two reasons, right? Like, is it because the mace happened there, or because they rested on the 15th?
Yeah, I think that's what confused me when I read it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, meaning if you just read it straight that the nace happened there. Let's put it. Shenemar v'noach v'chamish atzar bo is not a proof that the nace happened there. It seems to be a support for why we read it then.
Yeah.
So it does seem like two reasons.
Weird.
Yeah. And the other weird thing also is like the whole reason of like reading it on the 15th in walled cities seems to stem from Shushan.
Yeah.
So it's weird to present Shushan afterwards. I know Shushan's the exception, like categorically the way. Let's read this halacha and the next one where he addresses your question, or not? Or is it in this one? Oh yeah, sorry. Let's finish reading this paragraph, and then we'll think back to it. V'lama talu hadavar b'mei Yehoshua. Why did they make the matter contingent on the days of Yehoshua? Meaning a walled city at the time of Yehoshua, right? Because that was like how long before the Purim story? Like 800 years, 900 years.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, why? They lachalok kavod Eretz Yisrael, in order to apportion honor to the land of Israel. Shaita hareva the otso zman, that was desolate at that time. Okay, so what's the otso zman referring to? The time that the events of Purim happened, right? Yeah, because we were still in Galus.
Mm-hmm.
We were in Galus in Persia.
I've heard that it's like Ezra came back already.
Yes. So I just actually, I hold on. I sent this to someone in my chavurah.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
So I actually was talking about this.
Yeah.
I was talking about this with Rindy.
Okay.
And so there's, the book series, Magid publishing, like the blue and white.
The Tanakh book?
Yeah, the Tanakh books. Yeah, so this is from the Tanakh book in, hold on. I'm Rindy here. This is from the Tanakh book in Nehemiah, in Chag Zechariah and Malachi. Didn't I send it to him? Maybe it was Levi. Hold on. Levi. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so here's the timeline, okay? So the kings were, Koresh was from 539 to 530 BCE. Okay, that's Cyrus the Great. Then you have Cambyses, who's not mentioned in Tanakh, from 530 to 522. Then you have Darius the First, that's from 522 to 486. Wow, that's super long. Then Ahasuerus, who the historians identify with Xerxes. Then that's from 486 to 465. Then Artaxerxes, that's Artaxerxes, from 465 to 421. So that's the timeline of kings. Okay, now here's the so what was Koresh known for? Yeah, it's giving them the that's Cyrus. Oh yeah, that's Cyrus the Second is Koresh. Okay, so here's the events. Okay, during Cyrus's reign, they major events. It says here return to Zion. 42,360 people return to Israel, build the altar, and begin laying the foundations of the temple. Okay, then during Darius the First, rebuilding is encouraged after a hiatus due to enemy interference. Completion of the second temple and celebration. This is the thing I did not realize really, that during the Purim story, the base of Mikdash was built and up. Okay, if you hold that Ahasuerus is Xerxes. Next is Xerxes, and during Xerxes is when the Purim story happens. Then during the next king, Artaxerxes, then Ezra comes to Israel, fights intermarriage, and then Artaxerxes.
Ezra is now.
So okay, so
who is the first?
If you can see the chart, I'll have to send you the chart later on.
Yes.
So it goes in terms of the chronological events that are addressed. It's Ezra chapters 1 through 4 is the return to Zion and building the foundations, and that's Koresh. Then Ezra 5 through 6 and Haggai and Zechariah is during Darius the First. Rebuilding is encouraged and the completion of the second temple. Then Ezra 4-6, okay, Xerxes, beginning of Xerxes' reign. Then Megillus Esther, Okay, Xerxes, Purim story. Then Ezra chapters 7 through 10, Ezra comes to Israel, and that's Artaxerxes. And then Ezra back to chapter 4, 7 through 23, that's Artaxerxes, and then Nehemiah 1 through 13. So the chronology is all hard to follow. The upshot, though, which I, again, did not know, which, again, I don't know if this is like challenged, but in the book he says it's like, it's a consensus, or it's like the mainstream opinion among historians, is that the second Beis Mikdash was up and built already during the Purim story, which I don't picture it that way. Like, so I guess if either the Rambam disagrees with that, or when he says Eretz Yisrael was chareva b'Otosman, it's because it was still under foreign rule, and that's what he means by chareva.
Also, like, just because the Beis Mikdash was built doesn't mean it was like the whole land was built up.
Yeah, correct, right.
Doesn't the Gemara say that he did a calculation about the Beis Mikdash being rebuilt, and he assessed that it was 70 years and it hadn't been rebuilt, and therefore wasn't going to be.
Yeah, yeah. But that midrash itself is troubling also because, like, here's a good trick question, right? If you ask the average Jewish child, what king, said, "Oh, the 70 years have passed that it was prophesied," and then it hadn't been rebuilt, so he took all the Kalim Beis Mikdash and made a party. People will say it's Achashverosh, but in the Tanakh, it's Belshazzar, who was the last of the Babylonian kings, which was like significantly before the Persian kings. So like I don't know what's going on with that Achashverosh thing and when they started counting 70 and stuff. I mean, I know what your point is because he's saying that the Beis Mikdash hadn't been rebuilt yet, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it goes through the math of it, of how.
Yeah, I have never wanted to do that. I've done it, but I've never wanted to. Yeah, when I was doing Bekius and Megillah when I first year in yeshiva.
He says, Belshazzar counted and made a mistake. Someone else also counted and made a mistake, but I have the right count.
Right.
And he did a mistake.
Right. I also don't know what Chazal knew about the timeline. Like it's like even among Chazal, there's machlokim a lot about timelines. And Seder Olam Rabbah and like the Gemara and like lots of other stuff like that. So like they were already very far removed, hundreds of years removed from it.
Yeah, did you hear that like there's more machlokas about like these like later periods?
Yeah.
And then like before and like
Yeah.
Like
that's true.
It's all like kind of consensus.
Yeah, it is. Side point one. When I was trying to read up about this on Shabbos, then I used my great books and looked up Herodotus, who talks about Xerxes. And what I didn't know, I knew Herodotus was a historian. I didn't know he was contemporary with like the Purim story, like around that exact time. So he wrote about early history, but he's also writing about contemporary events when he was writing about Xerxes. No mention of the Purim story, obviously, but yeah. Okay, anyway.
He was home. Yeah, he was home.
Yeah. So Israel was desolate at that time. Okay, so I'm sorry. Why do we base the walled, non-walled distinction on the time of Yeshua? Because give kavod to Eretz Yisrael, which was desolate at the time of the Purim story, so that they can read like the members of Shushan, the hashvuk iluhim krakim mukafim, and they can consider themselves as though they are walled cities. They play this is their Purim costume. Alpha pishahim ata harevim, even though they are desolate now. Ho'il v'hayu mukafim b'mi Yehoshua, because they were walled in the time of Yeshua. V'yihi zikaron Eretz Yisrael b'neis zeh, and there's a zikaron for Eretz Yisrael in this neis. Yeah, never heard of that category in any other place. Like I know Zecher l'Churban, I'm familiar with that, but Zecher l'Eretz Yisrael, weird. Yeah. So what is this saying again? I mean, let's make sure we get this clear.
Okay, I think the first thing I was thinking about how to parse it. I think the thing is, it wasn't like. It isn't in this category, the category that we just said.
Of the walled cities.
The walled cities. But they read on the 15th because that was when the nace happened. Sorry, because they had the nace, and that was when they rested.
They meaning the Shushan. Yeah.
Shushan was where the nace was.
Right.
Therefore they get to basically set their own date.
Right.
And that date is the 15th.
Right. So, and that's why I think I was bothered by the order of presenting all this stuff, because like if I had to write this based on my understanding of the facts, like what I would say is there were in the Purim events there were two locations of the miracle. There was Shushan, or not the miracle. I keep on saying that. There were two different days of the reprieve, right? Where we won the war, the victory days, right? There was the victory day in Shushan, and there was the victory day everywhere else. And so Shushan celebrates Purim on their victory day, and everywhere else celebrates it on their victory day. And then we, in order to expand the category of Shushan, we expand it to all other walled cities. But that's not at all what he's saying, right?
No.
Yeah.
Well, I think, the way he's setting up is Shushan is where the nace happened.
Yeah.
That's like step one. And so they read.
Even though that's, well, let's
Yeah,
step one is when were they masaking the Zman of Megillah for? The 15th in walled cities and the 14th in non-walled cities. No explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I guess he's starting with the structure, building up the structure to Shushan, which is, I guess, that's the full structure, and then working backwards from Shushan to show you how that setup came about.
Yeah. So the question he's answering with Afal P is why is Shushan treated not as an ear,
Yeah.
even though the fact that it is an ear.
Yeah, usually you just have halachic categories.
Right.
You'll have like the one, yeah.
So his answer to that question is Shushan is placed in the same halachic category as the walled cities because the nates happened in Shushan. As it is stated.
Well, it's not that it's placed in the same halachic category. The only thing is,
he said it's considered like a walled city.
okay, fine, yeah.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So it's considered like a walled city, and therefore, and then so the function of the pasuk he quotes, Shnemar v'noach v'chamisha asar. What function does that pasuk serve?
To say why walled cities have on the 15th.
No, I think it's saying. What I'm saying is.
I would like if it said that.
Yeah, it's that. So Shushan is in the same category as walled cities. And Shushan is on the 15th because since they have the nace, then it's whatever their day is, which is the 15th.
Still think it's a weird pasuk the way he's quoting it, right? Shnemar. So Sheba Hay Hanes. Sorry, wait. Korin B'chamisha Asar. They read on the 15th. Sheba Hay Hanes, because the nace happened in it, as it is stated, and they rested on the 15th. So just how do those three clauses connect?
Meaning this is okay, yeah, like kind of like what Isaac's saying, that that Shushan, because it's where the names happened,
Yeah,
it has some kind of special relevance in the story. So their day is what determines where the walled cities do it, or not walled cities. Sorry. It gets to determine its own. Has to be set aside from the rest of the world.
okay.
And then, so which day? Oh, the day that they rested on.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, maybe the pasuk is serving to illustrate how they rested on a different day. And like these
I'm still very confused about this then. Okay. Now the question is why, Rambam? Why? Sheba Hay Hanes. That's why. Shnemar. I'll prove it to you. They rested on the 15th. So what is he proving to us? Let's list the options, okay? Just structurally.
Yeah.
V'noach v'chamisha asar is a proof that the nace happened in Shushan.
Right.
V'noach v'chamisha asar is a proof that they read on the 15th.
Right.
V'noach v'chamisha asar is that they read on a day that shouldn't be theirs, meaning that's the Afal P. Meaning they read on a day that is on a day of walled cities, even though it's not a walled city. Is there another?
I think it's I think it's the third option that they are reading on a day that's different than the rest of the world
Because the nace happened in it.
because the days happened in it.
Okay. And then so the pasuk proved what?
That they are distinguished from the rest of the world in terms of this.
But aren't they distinguished? No, it's like this. Bahai Hanes means that what made it different is that nace happened in it. That has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that they rested on the 15th, doesn't it? I mean,
No,
well,
resting on the 15th shows that they have some kind of.
Yeah, it's showing the difference in terms of the structure of the days, because because
just 1 second. Tell me what you would think if it said this. Shushan Habira, Alpha Pish Lohais and Mukefas Koma Bime Yoshua, Korim Bachamisha Asar, Shenetmar, Benoach Bachamisha Asar Bo.
Right, that would make a lot more sense.
That would make a lot more sense.
yeah.
So the problem here is Shabahaya Hanes. What does that have to do with anything? So what I thought we were saying earlier is, so it knows like this. We have all non-walled cities and all walled cities. We know from the previous halacha that the walled cities read on the 15th and the non-walled cities read on the 14th. Now halacha comes along and says, oh, Shushan is different. Okay, so the 2 questions we have to ask are, what makes it different? And then what does it do? What does Shushan do? So what makes it different is the fact that it had the nace in it. That pulls it out of the category of reading the 14th. And then the question is, well, where do we assign its reading? Is going to be the 15th, as it says, V'noach b'chumisha atar bo. So that, what that means practically is that the choice of the 15th is not dictated by the miracle happening in Shushan.
Right.
The miracle happening in Shushan just makes Shushan out of the category of unwalled cities, and then the pasuk tells us which day they read on.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's the simplest read.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Really convoluted.
Yeah. I have like an intuition about right about it, I wasn't able to cover it.
Yeah. All right, we'll see if we remember it. Don't ask me on Purim. Okay. Okay, and then let's just make sure we understand the second part. I don't think we got any further obvious than we're already left. I think we're just trying to understand this thing. So now we're trying to give kavod to Eretz Yisrael, which was desolate at the time. So my understanding of that is, see, it's almost like giving kavod, not the way you usually think of giving kavod. It's like we don't want to highlight the fact that there were destroyed cities in the time of Yeshua. Is that how you understand it?
Not in the time.
Or no?
of Yeshua. They were destroyed. cities.
Or sorry, in the time of the Purim story.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So in the time of Yeshua, Eretz Yisrael was built up. Now it's funny because Eretz Yisrael was built up. Do we know when in the time of Yeshua this is referring to? Is this referring to when he conquered or after they settled it? I don't know how long Yeshua lived into the building up of.
There's definitely more build up after Yeshua.
Yeah, right. Because I was going to say, it's so then all the walled cities were run by Canaanim. I mean, which I guess is better than being Hareva,
I guess so.
Yeah.
Right. That's true.
Right. Okay, then Kadeshi Yihiyu Korin Kibne Shushan. Okay, so this is where it gets confusing. See, so now.
Right, now it's not like the walled cities and Shushan is thrown into that category, but rather it's Shushan and then everything else is
Model after Shushan. See, and that was what my initial intuition was in terms of why are there 2 categories in general? One to reflect Shushan, one to reflect the other cities, The Hashu Iluhim Krafim Mukafim. And they will be considered, see, that's the other thing. They will be considered, that's the Bnei Shushan, will be considered as though they are members of walled cities?
No, no.
Isn't it?
The cities of Yisrael. Even though they don't actually have walls now, we're going to consider them like that.
Uh-huh. Even though the walled cities didn't have walls at the time of the Purim story.
Yeah.
They will be considered though they have walls.
Because they.
Okay, right. Alpha P Shehim Atab, right. Even though now at the time of the Purim story, they are desolate. Since they were walled in the time of Yeshua, and then that would be a Zikaron Eretz Yisrael B'nai Zeh, and that we just don't know what that's doing here. Yeah. I don't remember if he gets that from the Gemara, if that's his own thing. Not sure. Okay. Well, that was fun. All right, onwards. B'nei HaKfarim. Okay, now we got a third crew. Fourth category now, right? The fourth category?
Yeah.
We have unwalled cities, walled cities, Shushan, and now we have the B'nei Kafarim. So the villagers, the members of the villages, that only gather in the shuls on Mondays and Thursdays. Tiknu lahem, it was established for them, sheyihu makdimin v'korim b'yom haknisa, that they I never know a good translation of lehakdim. They make early, you know. Was that?
I said preempt, but that's also not.
Yeah, that's also not good, right?
Yeah.
So they make their readings early on the Yom HaKnisa, on the gathering day. Okay, I don't know if there's a what?
Earlify.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a formal like English term for Yom HaKnisa. I mean, he'll explain it, but basically it was a day that they all gathered in. All the villagers went into the big city. It's like market day, basically, right? To sell your produce and such.
Is that also, I don't know if it's the reason, but is that like also, it seems very similar to reading like this stuff.
I assume so, because that was the days that they went into the shuls.
Yeah.
Or so they went into the towns. Yeah, I think so. Ketad. Okay, how so? So meaning how were they mocking them? Im chal arba asar lihios b'sheni o b'chamishi. This is when we need a whiteboard. If the 14th of Adar fell out on a Monday or a Thursday, korim babayom, they would read that day. V'im chal lihios b'yom acher chutz misheni v'chamishi. If the 14th of Adar fell out on a day not Monday or Thursday, makdimin v'korim b'sheni o b'chamishi hasamuch la'arba asar. They would make it early. They would read it at they would make it early and read at the closest Monday or Thursday to the 14th. Okay, now he's going to spell it out. Ketzad. So you got to picture this in your head. Yeah.
You know it's getting complicated when you have this ketzad.
The double ketzad, the feared double ketzad. Yeah. Ketzad. Chal arba asar liyoth echad b'Shabbos. So if the 14th fell out on a Sunday, makdimin v'korin b'chamishi. So then they would read. The villagers would read on the Thursday that was prior, Shehu Yom Achar Asar, which is the 11th of Adar. Okay, so they'd make it the earlier, they would go one Thursday back. Kalios Bishlishi, if the 14th fell out on a Tuesday, Korin Bisheni, they would read on the Monday, which was Shehu Yom Shlosha Asar, which is the 13th of Adar. If the 14th fell out on a Wednesday, according to Bisheni, they would read on a Monday, on the prior Monday, Shu Yom Shnei Masar, which is the 12th of Adar. All of those who read early on the 14th or before the 14th, in Korin Osar b'Pachot Me'asar, they cannot read it in less than a minyan, which is not a requirement for a regular Megillah. Yeah.
Why does he have to give all of these examples? I think like the first one illustrates it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about the Rambam's Ketzad to know if he has consistent principles for when he does it. Like, for example, when we did Hanukkah, he gave examples. If if the members of the household are 4, then you do this, et cetera, until you reach 80, Yeah. Here, maybe it's just because there's only like 4 days of the week. And this way, I mean, there is a certain he's giving you all the possibilities now. Yeah, except Shabbos, which he's going to talk about later. If that's what you're.
Well, I was going to say he's giving all the possible days that you could read on.
Yeah.
11, 12, 13, 14, and 15.
Right.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's weird that we're mocking. Like you would think you're not tired to read yet, so you
delay it,
and then you play it, and then
yeah, it's a good question. I feel like the Gemara also talks about that.
I think the Gemara is because they set it up this way. They set it up that you do this.
Yeah.
By the way, it's just Kriya, right? It's not.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in either in this paragraph or when we talk about the other mitzvahs.
Yeah. So I thought I heard someone say that recently. I was like, oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Well, I think they did a ton of something.
Yeah. We'll address it. Yeah. Right now, we don't even know that there are other mitzvahs for Purim, right? Right.
Or it's Hilchos Megilah.
Yeah.
Right. It does take center stage.
Yeah. Well, it's not just that it takes center stage. I mean, the question is, he says in the beginning, Yishbivon Shtei Mitzvahs.
Right.
Say Mitzvah Sofrim, right? Now, already it's a problem because in Hanukkah, we already have near Hanukkah and Hallel. you know.
That's 9 mitzvahs.
No. But I don't think we asked this. How can you say there's only 2 mitzvahs when at the very okay, let's put it at the very least, Asher Kiddishana b'mitzvah v'tivanu is said about 3 mitzvahs in this section.
Yeah.
Mikra Megillah, Ner Hanukkah, and Halal. You know, so at the very least you have 3, and then if you count the other mitzvahs of Hanukkah, of Megillah, of Purim, of Matanos Levionim and Mishloach Manos and Mishneh, you know, then that's more. But he only says that there are 2.
I think we asked that by Father.
Okay,
We asked that by.
if we did, then we were good.
Oh, we said.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we definitely didn't answer it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's do this. Is this Shabbos case now? No, not yet.
Unless you
Far-
like the day, like setting up these days. Is it mitzvah? Like have these days.
Or I don't think so, right? Because the way he introduced this was saying, Eze Uzman Kriyasa, Zmani Hare Tiknu La. So the thing is the Kriya, and the Kriya he already identified as the mitzvah.
Mm-hmm.
This is like how they were masaking the doing of the mitzvah, but the mitzvah itself is Kriyas Megillah. Yeah. Were you trying to pull a move like the Hanukkah thing? Like that the mitzvah, I don't know if we said this, but the mitzvah is, they were masaking days of Hanukkah as the mitzvah.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, right. It's a good move, just not here.
So Hanukkah.
Hanukkah, he says that explicitly, I think, that they were masaking, that the essential kind of Hanukkah is, so then you're saying that that answers the 2 questions, or the question of the 2 mitzvahs?
Yeah.
Meaning that there's only 2 mitzvahs. And this explains, maybe we just say this, right? There's 2 mitzvahs in this section.
Okay.
Mikra Megillah and Yemei Hanukkah.
Okay.
Okay. Mikra Megillah, all the other mitzvahs that are going to happen in on Purim are somehow, I don't know what this means, extensions of Mikra Megillah. Okay. I'm just like throwing this out here, like what, and then the mitzvah of Hallel, that was the essential expression of Yemei, because Yemei Simcha v'Hallel is how the Gemara says it, and then Ner Hanukkah is a further expression of that somehow. I mean, it's still a weird way to count mitzvot, because again, practically speaking, you are making Asher Kisham Mitzvah Tivanu on Hallel separately and on Ner Hanukkah separately, but you know.
Well, I guess you're making it on 8 days also.
Yeah,
Right.
indicates something.
Right.
Yeah.
But also, it explains the title.
Yes, that was I didn't spell it out. That was my aha eyes. That Megillah and Hanukkah are the 2 things,
Right.
meaning Mikra Megillah and Yemei Hallel.
Right.
Your Yemei Hanukkah, you know.
Yeah, what? It's a weird way to set it up. Like,
It is.
Just make Purim also a yom thing.
Yeah, and we're going to see indications that it is something like that. But yeah, you know, I bet these questions are exactly the types of questions that I bet are taken up in the Harei Kedem. They sound like very Harei Kedemish type questions. Yeah, a good place to look. Farsh in Nichnasim Bo B'Sheni V'Chamishi. So villages that do not gather on the 2nd and on Monday and Thursday, Ein Korinasa Ela Barbasa. They only read on the 14th, meaning that we only made these provisions for the other cities because they have a Yom Knisa. The Irish Ein Ba Asara Batlanin, a city that does not have 10 idlers. So I don't really, I never really got a clear idea of like who these people were, but these were people who didn't have any jobs, whose job was to basically sit and learn and make minyanim, right? Like, yeah, not exactly kolel, right? You can imagine the stigma if we called people in Kola Batlanim, yeah, which maybe some people do, but like that's not their title. Harihi Kikfar, so that is like a village. Umakdimin v'korim b'yom haknisa, and they also read early like on the Yom Knisa. V'im ein ba'ir asara b'nei adam, and if there are not 10 people in the city, takanato kalkalaso, its decree is its downfall. I don't know how exactly to say kalkalaso. What footnote say? Takanato shihe nidon kikfar gorem kilkalato. So then a takana of making it like a village would cause harm to it. Because you can't read early less than 10. In other words, if you had a city that didn't have 10 and you forced it to read early, and reading early requires 10, so then you're basically saying you guys can't read, sorry. So they allow them to read on the 14th, because on the 14th you don't need a minion to read. Yeah. They are like the people in a big city, the inkoring Ela Barbasar, and they only read on the 14th.
I'm confused. Why can't they just, even if they're not in, why can't they just go in and fix it?
You mean why wouldn't Chazal just say like you should go in?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is I guess the question is only raised more by the fact that they set up different times for these places in the first place. In other words, will you say your question again?
Well, okay, yeah. So I guess, yeah, like, why not force them to go in? And like on Monday and Thursday, and if
The
you're
people
not,
in a city that does not have 10, you're saying? Or
yeah, and if they're not going in anyway, and they have a minion, I just don't understand why they. I don't get
okay, so
it.
I think what's going on here, and I'm not certain about this, is we've already wait, when did he first talk about Kfarim? Oh, so he category is Kfarim that gather on Mondays and Thursdays. So a separate Zmanim were created for those guys, right? Just like you got Zmanim for unwalled cities, Zmanim for walled cities, Zmanim for Shushan, and then Zmanim for villagers that congregate on Monday and Thursday. Okay, fine. Then we go to Halacha Ches, villages that don't congregate on Mondays and Thursdays. They read like normal, right? Okay. And then a city that doesn't have the Batlanim, 10 Batlanim, is like a village, and they read on the Yom Kanisa, right? But then if there are not 10 people, see when he says being in Ba'ir, Asar bin Adam, that doesn't mean if there are no Batlanim. It means if there are no.
I think even on Yom Kippur there's only 9 guys.
Yeah, right. What I'm trying to figure out here is like the categories.
I think
Are these all subcategories of kfar, or are these like separate categories on par with kfar?
I think these are talking about what fits the category of kfar. I think what's going on with kfar and Yom Kippur is that there's like a some sort of institution that as a tzibor they can read during the day that they have like the greatest like tzibor.
Mm-hmm.
So
right,
that's like market day.
Right.
But if they're not having a tzibor at all, then that's not.
Right. So that takes us up to if there's no tzibor at all, then they read on a normal day,
Yeah.
right? And then he goes to a city that doesn't have 10 batlanim. See, I'm missing that.
Like what?
City doesn't have 10 batlanim. He says they are machim to the Yom Kanisa.
So they are going.
They are going in.
I thought we said they're not.
No, so that's the last category. Is if there's not even 10 people in that city, then they don't go in because then that's going to put them at a disadvantage.
Why? Oh, even if they go in, even at the Yom Kippur.
Right, even at the Yom Kippur is not 10.
I guess I don't really understand the concept of the Sarah. So
yeah, that's the wrench in this.
But not just in the context of this. I don't understand how that relates to like tzibor. That's all I think about tzibor.
Yeah, yeah, me neither. Like it sounds like it's a different status of a city.
Yeah,
but yeah, I have to see. Does he talk about the Atar about London in a different place? Yeah, it looks like he does. So maybe we'll have to. Oh, it's in Chalas and Shuvas. It's not even in the Mishnah Torah. Or is it? All right, maybe we'll have to like start with that tomorrow. Because guess what tomorrow? Guess what the next halachos starts off with? Bamei devarim amurin. Yeah, no, but it's a simple one. It's a simple bit more.
I have a total speculation about the Asar Batman.
Yeah.
That
it's probably Haman.
That certain sort of that when you know Asar Batman, then the way that you're getting it, like getting a minion is you're gathering together the people for a minion. When you have Asar Batman, that's like I'd say like people aren't forming a group in the same sort of way.
Yeah, I hear that intuition. Yeah. That makes sense. All right, let's stop here for today. Yeah.